Okay. All right, thank you for joining us today. Before I proceed, though, let me introduce who is behind me. It's Sergeant George Haristokopoulos. He's the sergeant over our major case unit. And an amazing detective, Catherine Gordon, who's just done a phenomenal job on every case she is assigned, no matter how difficult they may be, like this one. So before I provide the update, I'm going to start with a recap of the initial incident. You may recall on September 3rd last year, deputies were called to 2 Randwood Lane in Palm Coast in reference to a shooting. When deputies arrived, they found that an 18-month-old child had been shot, but despite life-saving measures by deputies, paramedics, and doctors at Advent Health Palm Coast, the child sadly died. When deputies arrived on the scene, C.J. Nelson Jr. and his father, C.J. Nelson Sr., were alone together in the house, and that's an important part. During the investigation, it became apparent the crime scene had been tampered with and evidence was likely disposed of and cleaned up. It was also obvious that based on the evidence and scene, that persons that were in the house when the shooting occurred were not being truthful to investigators. At that time, C.J. Nelson Jr. was arrested for violation of probation as he was on probation for a gun violation. Then on November 15th last year, a grand jury indicted C.J. Nelson Jr. for manslaughter with a firearm following an indictment by the grand jury. He was arrested at the Flagler County Jail, where he had been held without bond on the probation violation. But that did not stop this investigation. And I again commend Detective Gordon and our major case unit for continuing to dig to find out who tampered with the scene and what was done. And you may recall last year when we held a press conference on the arrest, I mentioned that people were not being truthful, that the crime scene had been tampered with, and that we were going to continue this investigation. So based on the investigation and forensics evidence, we now know that C.J. Nelson Sr. was called and arrived on site almost immediately after the shooting occurred. And here's what he did. He provided instructions on how to stage the scene. C.J. Nelson was observed taking the firearm used in the shooting from C.J. Nelson Jr., using a t-shirt to prevent and wipe off fingerprints from being found on the weapon, and placing it in the bedroom where deputies found it. C.J. Nelson Sr. instructed witnesses to provide an alibi for himself and his son, C.J. Nelson Jr., but to tell deputies they were both outside smoking at the time of the incident. C.J. Nelson Sr. told C.J. Nelson Jr. to take a shower at 32 Princeton Lane in Palm Coast, where the home where they had relocated to after the shooting, while other family members were at the hospital with the child. Investigators also listened to and obtained jail phone recordings where C.J. Nelson Sr. made veiled threats against members of the media, deputies, Detective Gordon, and myself. On Friday, January 5th, detectives obtained an arrest warrant for C.J. Nelson Sr. during an investigation. C.J. Nelson Sr. was taken into custody while he was putting money in his son's account at the Sheriff Perry Hall Inmate Detention Facility, which is our county jail. Judge Perkins granted a special condition of no contact with C.J. Nelson on C.J. Nelson Sr.'s arrest warrant. Unfortunately, C.J. Nelson Sr.'s bond was set at only $15,000, and he posted the bond and was released. Our team is working with the state attorney's office to have a higher bond or a bond revocation, because we believe, and I personally believe, C.J. Nelson Sr. is a threat to witnesses and to members of the Sheriff's Office. You may be wondering how C.J. Nelson knew how to stage a crime scene and what to do. Well, frankly, he's a dirtbag, and he probably learned it in prison. He has multiple arrests, a total of 18 charges since 2003, 9 misdemeanors, 9 felonies, multiple traffic violations, police, sheriff's office arrest. He went to prison, fell of cocaine, where he was sentenced to 2 years in prison. He's been arrested for possession of marijuana. He's been arrested for child neglect with great bodily harm and battery. This case is a prime example that the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He certainly will never be Father of the Year. In fact, he won't be Father of the Day. So I'm glad and commend our detectives for arresting him. I hope he and his son enjoy prison. This is what C.J. Nelson Sr. looks like from his booking photo. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Sheriff, how did this come out that, the father was actually part of this?
Well, it was very good detective work by Detective Gordon and the team in Major Case. Obviously, the scene tells a lot. These are not, prison inmates are not CSI experts, okay? And they're not detectives. They might think they are, but they're not. And I have a very good team, and we have good technology, and we just kept working this case ever since the shooting, because we knew immediately the scene had been tampered with.
Can you say where you're at in the process of getting him to be held still? Because you said he's out on bond now.
He's out on bond now. We've had one meeting with the state attorneys on this. I saw the state attorney himself this morning. We'll just have to see where it goes. The court system is the court system. We don't control that aspect of it. But I do think that he is a danger to a variety of people.
You said that you believe he's a danger to witnesses. Is that because of the threats that he made over the phone calls?
So I'm not going to go into the exact details of what he has said, but I believe that his actions that we uncovered during this investigation makes him a threat to witnesses, certainly to continue tampering with witnesses, and to my detectives, and to myself. And he didn't quite go far enough. See, he knows just enough to take it to the line where we can't arrest his ass for making a threat. But he took it right there. He'll cross the line eventually.
What can you say about how the family is doing, considering this sounds like this was all in the family?
So I can let Detective Gordon, if she would like to. I have not spoken to the family, if you'd like to answer that.
Yes, sir.
The entire family, this is obviously a very tragic incident. The entire family is very confused on how to feel. They feel a whole range of emotions. Glad that some kind of justice has come, but also confusion, anger, I can only imagine. And this is not the end of it for them. They're never going to be able to fully comprehend what exactly happened and what their family members did.
Are you looking at other members of the family in your investigation?
I would prefer not to comment on that.
I think what I would say to that is this investigation is still not over. It would not surprise me if other things occur.
Sheriff, what is he charged with at this point?
So he was charged with 2 counts of tampering with evidence and 2 counts of lying to law enforcement during an official investigation.
What level felonies are those?
Those are level 3.
Does the severity of the crime in which they're accused of lying about or tampering with, does that come into play in the process moving forward?
Well, I would hope it would come into play for the actions that he did to try to hamper this investigation of the death of an 18-month-old child. I get trying to protect your son, but that's not, or your child, but that's not being a good parent. Hold your kids accountable. But he doesn't hold himself accountable. So of course he's not going to hold his kids accountable. He's going to train his kids how to be a dirtbag, how to be a criminal. And that's unfortunately what's happened. It's generational in this family, at least for those two, the father and son. But we see that all the time, and it's unfortunate. But a father needs to be a father, and this is not being a father. I would hope that when this case does go, the prosecutors will clearly know the background of the underlying death of a child. And I hope when it comes to a sentencing time, the judge takes that into account also. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.